and specialist in cannabis and medicinal uses thereof. Talking to us, I think you can probably regard this as an initial presentation because we've got very long, and I'm sure Susan can set you up with some more details after this, and Jude here will be involved in that as well. So, we're ready?
Great.
Okay, please.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. And also to Jude Belanger. He's the president of the Green Zone Committee, which is a committee that advises companies and individuals who are interested in cannabis. So thank you, Jude, for facilitating this. We're going to go pretty quick through a lot of different information. So feel free to ask questions at the end because I'm going to be moving pretty quick. So this is me. And if you want a copy of the PowerPoint slide deck, if you could give Jude your email address and I'll go ahead and forward it to you. As many people as we can educate on cannabis, the better. So there are many diseases that can benefit from cannabis. This is a partial list, and this is from the patent that the Department of Health and Human Services took out, or was granted in 2003 as cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectants. This is the abstract from their patent application. So the government's been paying for research on cannabis since the early 60s. Israeli scientists have really spearheaded this activity. And so all of their information was obviously channeled to the National Institutes of Health, and as a result, the Department of Health and Human Services took out this patent. Basically what it says is that cannabinoids, so cannabinoids are the compounds in the cannabis plant that have all of the medicinal values. So they say cannabinoids have been found to have antioxidant properties useful in the treatment and prophylaxis, meaning the prevention of a wide variety of oxidation-associated diseases such as ischemic, meaning there isn't adequate blood flow, age-related, inflammatory, and autoimmune diseases. The cannabinoids are found to have particular application as neuroprotectants, for example, in limiting neurological or brain damage following ischemic insults, such as stroke and trauma, or in the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases, such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and HIV dementia. So we are going to watch a quick little video. This is Larry, and you're going to have to excuse the technology here because for whatever reason it wouldn't play on my PowerPoint. So, guess it's not working now either.
Hi Larry, how are you? Come in.
Sorry. Okay, let's play it right from here. Sorry about this. I was here earlier today trying to get the, there we go. So, okay, so we do this
Trying to go straight to YouTube
and slideshow. There we go. Okay. So this is Larry. He's a retired police chief in a state that does not allow medical cannabis.
How you feeling? It's not been a rough week, really. And the best way to take it is put it under your tongue and rub it in your cheek. Don't do too much, you're gonna be asleep all night. You know what you should do? No, don't try to communicate, just relax. See what happens.
We know from animal experiments that the endogenous cannabinoid system is very important in regulating motor activity, the very type of activity that is impaired in Parkinson's disease. From animal experiments, we also know that boosting certain branches of the endocannabinoid system is helpful in relieving symptoms of Parkinson's. Finally, from anecdotal information, we know that certain patients who smoke marijuana experience relief of their symptoms.
I think you're calmed down. So quickly. Isn't that amazing?
He used just a single drop, and his hands afterwards were rock steady, and the dyskinesia left.
Who's the guy? It works most of the time. That is. Did you guys see the lunch? Are you hungry now? I should have back.
First, like me, because we're going to use marijuana. And it makes me pretty angry that I can't get my home state.
The number one frustration that they have is knowing that there is this untapped potential, comes from what marijuana is teaching us, to generate new medicines, and being stuck because of financial issues or political issues. That is extremely frustrating.
We now know that medical marijuana controls dyskinesia, and yet it's not available to us.
So that's Larry. I like to show that because a lot of people are under the kind of the misunderstanding that medical cannabis is just a cheesy way to get high. And it really is sometimes the only medicine that works for people. Parkinson's being one of them. I'm going to go through a lot of diseases here pretty quick. If you want me to expand afterwards, I'd be happy to. So Lou Gehrig's disease, glaucoma, which is increased pressure within the eye that damages the optic nerve. And since cannabinoids are neuroprotectants and anti-inflammatories, it's very effective for glaucoma, so people don't go blind. In the patent, they were talking about traumatic injury to the brain. And you can see this is chronic traumatic encephalopathy. This is what you see in football players, etc. The CTE brain is on the bottom on the right. You can see how different it is from the top, and that's just from chronic brain trauma. So this is CTE in making. And this is my friend Evan. So Evan played for the Chicago Bears for about 8 years, and he is a very vocal cannabis activist and is trying to get the NFL to loosen up their restrictions on cannabis as a way to manage pain, inflammation, as well as protect their brains from CTE. And in the patent, they mentioned autoimmune diseases. Well, there are over 100 different types of autoimmune disorders. They affect the brain, the blood, the GI tract, your nerves, your lungs, skin, muscles, bone, and thyroid. And to know that there's a medicine that not only can treat these disorders but prevent them is it's very hopeful. Cannabis is very effective in managing the symptoms of PTSD. Right now, about 21 veterans kill themselves every day as a result of PTSD. The Veterans Administration's typical treatment protocol includes a cocktail of antipsychotics, antidepressants, anti-anxiety drugs, and narcotic analgesics. And clearly it is not working. This is epidermolysis bullosa. This is a congenital disease where the kids are born without collagen in their skin. So collagen keeps the layers of your skin together. So if you have the slightest brush against their skin, it blisters, and then the blisters open up. So I actually use an over-the-counter CBD product called Theramu, and that company is very involved with the EB Society, and they provide a liquid form of CBD that the parents put in an airbrush machine and spray it on the kids, because as you can see, the kids are totally emaciated because they get blisters in their mouth as well, so it's very difficult for them to eat. So cannabis, again, is the only thing that provides any kind of relief for them. And cannabis is also very good on the skin, so it promotes healing. And this is probably the most exciting part of cannabis research, and that is for the treatment of cancer. This is a patent that was taken out by 2 pharmaceutical companies, one in the UK and the other one in Japan. And this isn't just for managing the symptoms of chemotherapy, like the nausea, the vomiting, the pain, etc. This is for actually killing cancer cells. And there's been a lot of research, very promising results, and not just for your, baby cancers, but for your killers like melanoma, leukemia, breast cancer, prostate cancer, non-small cell lung cancer, etc. Now, we all know that the country is suffering from an addiction epidemic, an opioid addiction epidemic. This was reported on CBS. Those are the parents that just shot up and passed out in their car, and you can see their little son in the back seat. About 175 people die every day from the opioid overdose, and the kids are really the victims here, because there's been a 40% increase in the number of kids who have been pulled out of their homes because it's an unsafe environment with addicted parents, and are put in state custody. So it's a huge, huge problem other than just the addiction side of it. Okay, so to talk about some very common issues, sleep deprivation. So they've decided that 70% of Americans have issues with sleeping. 40% are men, 30% are women, and whether it's falling asleep or staying asleep or getting the adequate level of sleep that's, rejuvenating. And so when you have sleep deprivation, you're going to see a lot of different issues. So when you don't get enough sleep, your pain is worse, your anxiety is worse, your depression is worse. You have an increased risk of cardiac disease. Sleep deprivation is closely linked to diabetes and hypertension. And you have a 30% risk of obesity. So speaking of obesity, this is a great way to illustrate how flexible cannabis is as a medicine. So if you use a high dose of THC for somebody who has cancer and is unable to eat and has nausea, vomiting, the nausea goes away, the vomiting goes away, and they're hungry. And I'm sure everybody's heard of the munchies. So that comes from THC. Now they've become sophisticated enough where they can regulate the percentage of the different cannabinoids. So CBD is another cannabinoid that's pretty well known, especially for managing intractable epilepsy for kids. And also THCV is also an appetite suppressant. So if you're obese and you have metabolic syndrome or diabetes, CBD and THCV are the cannabinoids for you. For anxiety and depression, menstrual cramps, nerve pain. Opioids don't touch nerve pain. So whether it's sciatica or whether it's shingles or trigeminal neuralgia, whatever, cannabis is extremely effective because, again, they're neuroprotectants and anti-inflammatory, which is usually a big part of peripheral neuropathies. And it's also effective with essential tremor. So this is near and dear to my heart because that's how I became a cannabis patient. I have essential tremor, and I was on high doses of anti-seizure meds and having horrible results, and got desperate and started researching. I was never a cannabis user. To make a very long story short, I am now off all of my prescription meds. My tremors, they're not perfect, but they're not like they used to be. In fact, I'm going to show you a video now of what essential tremor looks like. So let's see if we can get this one going again.
So you can see how with my right hand, things were difficult, but now I can just chop that right up. I have had essential tremor since I'm a teenager. When it first started, it was very, very mild. As time went by, it got worse. My left hand was worse than my right hand, and I am a lefty. The last few years were very embarrassing to me. I couldn't write a letter or sign my name. Cooking was very difficult, cutting or slicing. Whatever I had to do would take me 3 or 4 times longer. I would hold my left hand with my right hand to try to put my makeup on. Then I'd get in the car and there would be the mirror, and I looked like a clown wiping some of the makeup off that I didn't see in the mirror. In some ways, this does take your independence away from you.
So this is why I love cannabis and why I want everybody to know about the benefits that are available to them. Let me just get back to the slideshow. Usually the treatment for essential tremors are, they just go through every anti-seizure medication because it's a progressive disease. So as the tremors go higher, they give you higher and higher doses until you hit the lethal dose, and then they have to stop that and start in another anti-seizure med. And this is my brother, Jeff. A couple months ago, so there are 8 kids in my family, 6 of us have essential tremor. He's the worst, and a couple of months ago he went in for deep brain stimulation, which is basically like having a pacemaker put in your brain, because the tremors actually come from abnormal impulses within the brain. So this is him during surgery. Okay, how horrible is this? You have to be awake during it, because they have to ask you a bunch of questions, and you have to move your limbs and all that kind of stuff. And then on the right you can see his post-op scars. So I'm very grateful to cannabis, because hopefully I will be able to avoid that. And so that's my very, very quick, very high-level view of cannabis, and I love talking about cannabis. So anybody who wants more information or whatever, I'm happy to talk to you.